control the vertigo.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this week's Anthologic with host Mark. Today I'm talking about something a little unusual for me because usually, our emphasis is horror and sci-fi and mystery. And the series I'm going to talk about is not particularly any of those in the more general sense. It's called the Dupont Show of the Week. It was an American anthology drama series that ran on NBC in America from September the 17th, 1961 to August the 30th, 1964, across 4 seasons. It was fairly prestigious. For example, it was nominated 1 time for an Edgar Allan Poe Award and 8 times for Primetime Emmy Awards. So it's fairly well regarded, I believe. I had very little I could find out about this show other than the little bits I managed to glean here and there. And, it looks like from the roster of episodes that some of them are comedies, some are straight dramas, some are thrillers. However, the one I'm going to cover tonight is kind of a horror and an interesting one. And again, breaking with tradition, I usually do season 1, episode 1 as best I can when they're available. There's not many of these available, but this specific one is the one I want to talk about. And, it doesn't work when it isn't a horror or mystery format. I have to pick the ones that are horror, mystery, or sci-fi, right? This one is from season 2. Episode 17, first aired on May the 19th, 1963, and it's called The Legend of Lylah Clare. If that name seems familiar to you, it's because it was remade by that title as a film in 1968, which is going to be interesting. Now, it's basically a kind of a psychological possession story with a touch of Pygmalion or My Fair Lady, if you prefer something more recent. Pygmalion being Henry Higgins training Eliza Doolittle and all the mentorship and the controllery and issues around that. The Legend of Lylah Clare kind of is part of that format. Now, it runs for nearly an hour. It is on YouTube. You can watch it. It does have the adverts, and it is called the Dupont Show of the Week. Dupont was and is a chemical company. Their motto when this was aired was "Better living through chemistry," but I think that kind of got subsumed by the counterculture. I think it's got something like it's got a new motto now. Let me have a look. The Miracles of Science. It's a chemical company, but the sort of ethos of the company is making life better for everyone and healthier and stuff like that. That's what DuPont's kind of about. However, they did sponsor this show for quite a considerable time, and it's kind of fun to see some of the adverts as you watch it. It's for paint and clothes and all sorts of things that are created by the wonders of chemistry back in the early 60s. So it's going to be interesting. Now, this show, the main characters, stars in it are Tuesday Weld plays a character called, I think, Nancy, or was it? No, Elsie, who is the spitting image or very similar to a movie star that died 20 years before, whose name was Lylah Clare. A famous Hellraiser. She's kind of half Mae West, half Marilyn Monroe, very self-possessed person. From the sound of it, who died tragically in circumstances we don't quite know at the beginning. But she encounters, as this actress Elsie, she encounters this auteur, in effect, who is called Louis. Hold on. I've got to be careful here because it's very difficult to mix up the movie and the film because some of the names are a little different. But the Lylah's, I think it was Zirkin, it was kind of, it suggested it's her husband, but it's never entirely clear from the sort of the screenplay exactly what the relationship was. But you do feel that there was a sort of stuff going on between this man and Lylah, quite considerable sort of emotional tension. And in fact, Tuesday Weld, the sort of the interesting stuff starts early. Tuesday Weld is actually looking at a picture of Lylah, and she starts talking as if she's her. And then the man is kind of a bit perplexed, I have to say, by what's going on. So he's kind of perplexed, and it freaks him out a little. So it's and I'll tell you what, the whole thing is really interesting, very intense. It's a very intense drama, and I have to say Tuesday Weld is excellent in this. She's really good. I mean, you've got to consider it as of its time, so it's very melodramatic, but I really, really enjoyed this. Some of the twists and turns it takes are quite dark. There is one other actor in it who I kind of recognised, who is best known these days as the guy that played Boss Hogg in The Dukes of Hazzard. He plays like this big movie mogul. He's that type of character. So I tell you, I would highly recommend you go find it on YouTube and give it a watch. The quality's not brilliant, but it's acceptable. You kind of understand what's going on. I have to say, the Dupont show of the week, it wasn't particularly unusual. There were other shows that have a name sponsor. That was a thing in the early 60s. You often had shows with a certain name of a company, so it wasn't that unusual. But I have to say, the actor that played Zakin in that was an actor called Alfred Drake. I have seen him in something, and in fact, there's one of his later credits was the manager of the stock exchange in Trading Places. But he kind of has got a familiar look to him, and he actually reminds me quite a lot. And he died at a fairly young age, relatively young age actually, at 77 in 1992. It kind of also reminds me quite a lot of Ross Martin, who played the sidekick in the Wild Wild West. Another really good and interesting striking actor who would be good in a role like this. Alfred Drake kind of reminded me of him. But I have to say, the performance Weld gives gets crazier and crazier as you don't know if it's psychological or if it's possession, but it kind of becomes a full-blown possession story in the last act. And it's intense and weird. And you kind of also find out that Zakin may have killed Lylah Clare. And a lot of the thrust of the drama is he never showed Lylah love. Though she was yearning for his love, he wouldn't reciprocate. He just wanted to get a movie made with her. And apparently he was her husband, maybe. It's really difficult to be absolutely sure of this. And basically, a lot of it is him training this girl to act like Lylah, which we've abandoned, quite loose, morally kind of questionable. For example, seeing reporters while she was in the bar drinking champagne and saying things quite lascivious. Kind of Mae West-like is the best way to put it. And she's railing against this quite a lot of the time. Why am I acting like someone else? Why can't I just be me? But then other times she's relishing it. And it's kind of, is she possessed at that point? Is she not? There's a lot of this to-ing and fro-ing within this story. It's a good little story and worth a look. And actually, I've probably quite forgotten. I came across it because I'm reading a book by a man called Sean Hogan, who is a horror director and writer, and he's sort of a creative force within the horror sort of community. And he wrote a book that I read not long ago called England Screaming, which is a great book where he kind of synthesized various horror films set in England and Britain into like almost like a coherent narrative. So they became like a fictionalized history of England, the underside of England. That was kind of cool. He then has done the same for America, and that's called Twilight's Lost Screaming. And Legend of Lylah Clare gets a big mention in one of the chapters, along with many films that kind of touch on it. One thing I will say is Lylah Clare, the nature of it kind of reminded me of James Stewart in Vertigo. He's controlling sort of ways in Vertigo with Kim Novak. And interestingly, when this was made into a movie, and I have to say a badly received movie, apparently it's not very good, and no one really likes it. Even the Kim Novak who was in it doesn't like it. Kim Novak went on to play Lylah Clare, and it's weird because I immediately thought when I was watching it, this reminds me of the relationship between James Stewart and Kim Novak in Vertigo. So it's almost like a circular thing there. I think. Yeah, so big recommend for me, Legend of Lylah Clare. Look on YouTube. It's also the Dupont show of the week, if that helps you identify it. And you can see for yourself if it was as good or not, as I said. Okay, I'm going to wind it up there. Before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to